Good morning. Last night I shared with you some vulnerability that I have regarding my son's IEP meeting and his struggles in school and his IEP staff that I don't feel support me and my ideas because I almost feel like they're just getting him on by, right? I don't feel like they're as invested in him as I am because I'm his mom, right? That's natural. So getting them to hear my point of view and understand where I'm coming from is the challenge. And I had the meeting this morning and it was quite intimidating for me. I heard Everyday Positivity podcasts from Kate Cocker this morning, and it fit perfectly with where I was at, what I was feeling, my anxiety, my stomach ache, all that stuff, and it's exactly what I needed to hear. So I went into the meeting with confidence. I felt sure of myself that we're all there for the right reason, which is to help Matthew and to help Matthew be as successful as possible. And I don't want people enabling my son. I don't want my son to have someone by his side all the time, because he'll get reliant on that, dependent on that. And I think he already was, which is why he's challenged this year when people aren't helping him as much. So anyways, the meeting was scary at first, because when I spoke up, I've had a lot of pushback. The principal pushed back, the resource teacher pushed back, the psychologist pushed back. I honestly felt a lot of resistance in that room, and everyone said they could see it in my body language, on my face, my facial expressions, that I felt depleted, defeated, whatever I don't remember the word they used, but basically they could see it on my face that I was discouraged in a way that by their responses. And they assured me that they're going to get him evaluated to see if a one-on-one aid is needed, and they don't think that it is because there's not enough data to support it. They don't think that it's needed because they feel like he's doing so much better than he was. They don't feel like it's needed because his grades are not failing. They don't feel like it's needed. So they don't, and I guess the typical requirement for a one-on-one aid is that he's got to meet these requirements or this criteria. So I don't disagree with what they're saying, because that's obviously the rules or the procedures or whatever. But I might disagree with the criteria. Why does a kid have to be failing and showing clear signs of distress to get the support he needs? Can we come up with a creative way to get him the support he needs if it doesn't look like this specific thing that you guys need it to look like? Can we still get creative? And they even when I asked that, the principal's like, we don't have the resources. And I'm like, fuck you and your resources. Let's get creative with the resources we got. And it wasn't until a little bit later in the conversation, of course I didn't say that, but later on in the conversation, I had other people who weren't giving so much pushback come up with other ideas on how to help Matthew with the immediate problem, which is he's scrambled in class. I guess it's not as bad as I was thinking, according to the occupational therapist who sits with him 90 minutes a month, 2 45-minute sessions. She sits with him, and she had notes on what he was doing, what he was paying attention to, how he got an answer wrong one time, but it didn't crush him. He still participated in the next question. I mean, those are huge notes that help me understand understand that maybe he isn't as bad as I thought he was. But from the feedback I'm getting from Matthew, he's confused in school. He doesn't know what he's supposed to be doing. He's not getting the support he needs from the teachers. Matthew's perspective, of course, is all I really have when the teachers refuse to email me back, when the teachers refuse to communicate with me. And I don't mean that they refuse to because they're against me or Matthew in some way. I just think that they've got so much going on and they're not used to accommodating special needs kiddos because they've got so much chaos when the kids get older. There's so many kids that need help, and there's only so much time one teacher can invest. If it's not a full classroom setting, then they can only do so much out of classroom. So I understand that point of view. What I'm just trying to say is the meeting went ultimately well and fine, and it wasn't a total loss because we've got a game plan in place. We're going to try the agenda again where Matthew has to sign off in each classroom. He has to write down what's expected of him in that class. I have to sign it to say that I saw it. I don't really trust that it's going to work because we've tried this before and we know what happens. Either Matthew falls off or the teachers don't do, or Matthew's still confused even though he wrote something down. This is past though, and they made a good point. We can't just not try it and say we've tried everything. We need to try this again so that we have the data that shows what we've tried and what's not worked. And we don't have the data of what happened the last time we tried the agenda. Everyone just kind of lost sight of it. And then afterwards, I encouraged Matthew to go to the cafeteria and get breakfast, but it was a little late. And he says to me, "Oh, Mom, they're probably all closed. That's going to be awkward, everything." I go, "Well, if they're closed and we can't get your breakfast, I'll take you out for breakfast. And then I'll bring you back to school. Because you sat in that meeting, that long meeting with me. He sat in there the whole time, and he engaged in the conversation for the most part, and was a really good sport about it. And then I made him miss breakfast because the meetings took so long. So I told him I'd take him out, and he's like, "Oh, I'd much rather do that. I'd much rather have that." And I go, "Let's just do that then. Instead of worrying about going to breakfast and seeing if they can feed you, I'll just take you out right now because that's special. And let's do something special. I don't have to be at work right away." And so I took him out to breakfast, and as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, "You know what, Bubba? If you can get this new agenda thing signed every day for the next week, I'll take you out next week too." And if I can keep giving him incentives like that, it probably won't be once a week, but the first one will be for a week, and then I'll challenge him to do it for 2 weeks, and then I'll challenge him to do it for a month, stuff like that. And I'll continue to reward him maybe with a special breakfast, because that tells me he might really appreciate that reward more than any other reward. A motivation and incentive. That's one of the things we talked about at the meeting. And then also when I talked to Matthew, he mentioned that the last time he had an agenda, the incentive was that he would be grounded from electronics if he didn't get it done. And so I told him, I said, "Well, we can do that too if you want, or would you rather be rewarded for a good job, or do you want to be punished if you don't do it?" Because that is two different ways of handling a child. You can either reward them, bribe them, or you can restrict things. And each is going to work depending on the situation, depending on the child, depending on the incentive, depending on the chore, depending on whatever you're asking them to do. It's going to be a case-by-case basis. And I've tried different things with Matthew, but the spark in his eyes when he said, "I'd rather do the breakfast with you, Mom," that clued me in as, you know what, I could do breakfast with him more often, take just him out when he's earned it, all I did was take him and got French toast sticks at Burger King this morning, and he loved it. I didn't have to spend a ton of money. So I'm feeling like we've got a game plan. I feel like we have something in the works, and sorry this has taken so long to just talk about it. I'm feeling better about the whole thing in general, and we'll just see how it goes. So Thanks for staying updated on what's going on with Crystal. Talk to y'all later. Bye-bye.